His Excellency, the former President, John Agyekum Kufuor, thank you so much for agreeing to speak to us.
Welcome.
Can you share with us some of the moments that you recall getting into the party's formation?
Well, outside of the fight, formed the Progress Party. That was when I became a politician, if you like. I joined that party as a founding member in 1968-69. Again, the soldiers came back through a champion school, abolished parties. 79, when they decided to go back to barracks, but wouldn't allow the parties to resume their old names. This party, our tradition, formed the Progress Party, the PFP, Popular Front Party, on one side, and there was a splinter or a split. The other side, from the same stock, same tradition of liberal democracy, became the UNC. I've forgotten the full name, UNC. And then from there, again, series of coup d'etats happened. Rawlings came, stayed on till 1992 before restoring the country back to constitutional rule, again with parties. The tradition assuming another name of party, but in principles, I think there wasn't any change. And this was when the current New Patriotic Party was formed, of which, I was a founding member in 1991-92. Thankfully, over the past, is it 40 years now?
Yes.
We've stayed the course, and so NPP has been at least borne the same name. And we haven't been forced by circumstances to change the name. But the principles remain the same as the founding fathers envisioned, that liberal democratic constitutionalist party.
I get a sense that consistently the principles that underpin the party haven't changed, even with the change of name.
In principle, no change. The names have changed. Forced, the changes were forced on us by the incursions of the military every now and then, and denying us the right to go back to our original names.
You touched on the ideals and the principles that underpinned the party's formation, your decision, your thinking, freedom of association, freedom of expression. You're able to air your views without necessarily thinking twice about it, because you encouraged people to talk about issues that bothers on the party. Has the party drifted from these ideals and principles as you see it now?
See, over time, and with the rapidly changing technological and global influences, economic, social, and all that sort of thing, and with many of the original people who really upheld the principles like almost an ideology or religion, we find so many people have come into the fold. Now I think I can speculate that perhaps it's the biggest party in terms of popular support in the country. We see that, or some of us feel that practice-wise, perhaps the commitment to the basic liberal democratic principles perhaps might not be as pure and the same as used to be. Say even around 92. Now, I don't think that commitment is the same.
The level of commitment to the party,
not to the party.
to the
party,
ideals,
ideals.
The principles that you upheld then has dwindled over time.
I wouldn't know if it's dwindled, but I may not say that the way I feel it. I don't sense the same strong commitment. I've likened commitment earlier times to almost a religion. I don't sense that now.
What in your view could have contributed to this? This less commitment that you see to the ideals and principles of the party now as against what was the case in 1992?
Well, I sense there's too much talk about factionalism within the group. If you're talking proper democracy and an inclusive one, you wouldn't emphasize factions. Once the practice of, say, selecting, say, if you like, polling station, organizational committee, or constituency, or national, you wouldn't be so divisive and emphasizing faction. Oh, he belongs to that side, so no cooperation. You do that, you are dividing the force, the numerical force that you need for any democratic practice. See, you vote to pick a leader. There would be contests, there would be rivalries, but the whole idea of democracy is you go, of course, on condition that the electoral field would be level and the process would be truly free and fair. Once you've gone into the contest and the results come out, whether they came in your favor or against, you close ranks and you follow the winner, free and fair. But these days, you get the feeling after we've gone through the process of selection, there seems to be a rift that seems to be deepening, which shouldn't be the case. So this is why I say the commitment, perhaps like 92, say in selecting our presidential candidate, Professor Dubois, Selby, myself, J. Addison, Safoedu, we all contested, and we were quite serious. Traveled up and down the country, but once the conference met at Legon and the majority came out, and it was because we believed generally that the process had been truly free and fair. We all rallied and sort of committed ourselves to supporting our candidate, Professor Dubois. But these days, I don't get the feeling that there's this commitment.
This deepened factionalism could actually derail the party's progress if not checked?
Naturally. For instance, the last election, the 2021, because of the, I would say, intolerance and this deepened sense of factionalism, we heard all over the place of people going to vote skirt and blouse in the national elections, which wouldn't have been the case. And I believe that contributed to our reducing now seats in parliament, for instance, dropping from 169 to 137, causing a split parliament, a hung parliament, within just a space of 4 years. That's too serious. And we shouldn't continue that.
The leadership, for instance, some persons in leadership benefit from this factionalism or this divide and rule tactics.
I wouldn't know any genuine leader who would benefit by it, because democracy is headcount, numbers. And if you have a force of, say, 169 seats in parliament, and because of factionalism, and your numbers reduced from 169 to 137, and you say you benefited, then I would suspect your commitment to the tradition. So I don't think, sincerely, I don't think leadership as I know it have thought that they benefited. But in a mass party like ours, very likely there might be some hidden forces within the ranks that wouldn't want. They may not be quite genuine to our tradition. So people like that, and of course you wouldn't know them, they might be like agents provocateurs. They were in there to ensure you lose your cohesion. You suffer splints, so your numbers would reduce. But the leadership as I know it, I don't think it's with the splits.
Has enough been done to address this very worrying trend that you see?
Well, if you are looking at the recent polling station elections and leading to, I think, what will take place in the week or two's time, I think there's been some effort at cleansing. Because if you remember 2020, some people were even complaining that even when they offered to buy nomination form, they were denied.
We actually saw the repeat of it prior to these recent elections as well.
I think there was some serious attempts at correcting that, so I believe we are making efforts too.
I spoke to the likes of Sami Krab, for instance, make reference to your tenure as one that encouraged extensive democracy within the party.
Because I come from the old school. What I believe, though, is that around the world, it seems everybody wants to get counted, which I believe is the essence of democracy. And because of this trend in human society, democracy would regain its strength. It might not come across like old times, but we are, I believe, moving into times where nobody would accept to be sort of bypassed or marginalized just because someone or other who would think they are bigger in whatever sense wants to hold sway. I don't think people would continue to accept that sort of thing. The party is searching to restore itself to its proper trajectory of human rights, rule of law, fair play at the polls, and that sort of way. But definitely it's ongoing. The youth are so expressive, and so it's going along. Only thing is, party's purpose is really to seek power, national power to govern. And the tenure, I've had occasion to say many times, the tenure of 4 years is so short. And to try to correct mistakes and misdirections within a short space of over a mass party, I tell you, it's no joke. But in spite of that, I believe serious effort is on the way.
Indeed. You earlier talked about some of the forces within the party which may be working against the party's progress. I mean, how entrenched are they, and can they be identified?
No, they haven't succeeded in derailing the party yet. No, but I'm saying within a mass party like we have, very likely there would be some force that you can't easily track or trace, working against the central vision and purpose and principles of the party. If such could even be just one person, if they cleverly manage to find their position in some sensitive spots, I tell you, they could do some damage. But by and by, they are exposed and then jettisoned. It's happening not only here. Look at America now. Look at what has happened. Can you imagine the United States Capitol being assailed from within the Republican Party, Lincoln's party, Abraham Lincoln's party? So if it can happen there, very advanced nation, it could happen in up-and-coming countries like ours.
You speak to the rank and file of the party, and I know that you are very much in touch with the grassroots of the party. Yeah. What's the expressions? What's the sentiment down there? What do they tell you?
Well, I will tell you that generally there's this belief and commitment that the party is a party of destiny, destined to be the party to help evolve the nation of Ghana to serious wealth-creating society of deep social sense, inclusively, and it showed when we got the chance in terms of doing the necessary social interventions like education, like healthcare, like fairness, justice, and like the repeal of the criminal liability to allow people to think and to talk, and also to demand accountability of leadership. At the same time, also to drill in the people that sense of responsibility of citizenship. So it's there within the party. And it's like, yes, because of the current challenges, we occasionally seem to be losing our way. But I tell you, when you talk to the rank and file, in many respects, we are searching to regain the trajectory, as I said earlier. Monetization of politics these days. People talk so much money these days, and of course, they make it seem that people go into politics to make money. And if that's the case,
is that not the case?
I doubt it. I didn't go into politics to make money.
You didn't go into politics to make money?
No.
Why did you get into politics?
I just believe that there was some mission for me to pursue to better the lot of my society. I was privileged. At the age of 27, I was managing the second city of Ghana. I held the position for 3 years. It wasn't for pay or not for that. 30, I was member of parliament, deputy foreign minister of Ghana. And somehow I believe that in time I would have the chance to help lead this country into, if you like, modernity, into a welfare status, inclusively. And I believe there were others like me. Even now, I believe there are people with this sort of, but as I say, now, at every turn, you hear, this man paid so much to, say, delegates and that sort of, it's getting too much. And sort of spreading a very cynical attitude within the rank and file that if you want to get anywhere these days, you must have tons and tons of money to buy your way. You do that, then you're doing it at the sacrifice of principles, and also throwing away the vision with which the founding fathers, for instance, came into politics, even to sacrifice themselves. J.B. Dankwa, for instance, he died. It was a matter. Buzia was a matter. It wasn't money.
But that's the reality these days. I mean, you would have people spend, I mean, there's a research by the CDD that actually indicates that people spend as much as over 1 million Ghana cedis just for party primaries, and about 5 to 10 million cedis to get into parliament, for instance. And we talk about the internal...
Politics, democratic politics, I should say, is expensive all over the world. But I tell you, it is also, could also be very principled, even with money being used. Because these days, you want to get a message across, if it's advertisements or using any of the new technologies, and if you want to cover the whole country, you need legmen, and they must be sustained. The vehicles you would need, and so forth and so on, you need money to do these things. But I tell you that without principle, then it might be like the whole thing being bought, which might lead to enslavement one way or the other.
So the democracy is sold to the highest bidder now.
Is undermined. But what's happening, again, globally, people talk of populism. I tell you, populism essentially is democracy. Essentially democracy, except that it's more like an anarchy without order. And that's not what anybody should want. What is happening with populism is the people in there wanting to feel counted. It's identification, which is the kernel of democracy. You go into the government of the people, for the people, by the people. That's Lincoln's definition, which is so right. But if people get frustrated because they say they won't get the money to buy, and they see people with money sort of corrupting and distorting what should be an otherwise honorable sort of thing, then they may take things into their own hands, and then they go haywire. They say populism, negative, because there's no order. They throw even constitutions overboard. And then it's no longer like government of people, which is democracy in itself. But the purpose of these people who protest the way they, is the frustration they feel for being denied their right to dignity as human individuals within the governance systems. So I believe, yes, we talk money, but even money would have its limits. And so along the way, I believe there would come some balancing. We may need money to organize parties, yes, no doubt. But to what end? Organize to uphold the dignity of man. Once we get to that sense of respecting the dignity of man, then human rights, respect for human rights will come to prevail. And then we find a way to perhaps the new democracy that should work.
And that's why you consistently talk about principles, because in the end, yes, democracy is expensive, but the expenditure of democracy, in most cases or in our case, is eventually borne by the ordinary Ghanaian, because in the end, if the politician spends this much money to get in there, they will definitely find ways to make their money back.
Naturally, if that's the way, if I have to buy, you allow myself to buy you, then I use you as I want. But you being human, in due course, you have to feel outraged. And when it gets to that point, that's where the populist tendency comes in. I hope you get the flow, yeah. And when it gets to that, the moneyed man who bought his way, he would run away. And so, but then the challenge, the difficulty would happen. How do we restore this person, say, within the populist movement? How do you restore him back to the orderly society of, let's say, law, rule of law, where everybody plays under the law, because nobody should be higher than the law. And that is the next challenge that I believe we would all have to face. But currently, though I admit that it seems like you want to have a say, you want to offer yourself for service, you must also have tons of money to buy your way. It's not.
How do we tackle this monocracy, as some people put it, in our democracy, where you've outlined the dangers of this reality that we are faced with right now, that, look, you need to have money to be able to get into positions of power in this country, have a political investment, get in there and hope to make your money back. How do we deal with this situation?
It should be, it's a social challenge. And ideally, it should engage the thought processes of the entire society, especially in the institutions of, say, high learning, among the professionals, among the business classes. Everybody should be concerned to think through how we put money where it should be. Yes, you invest to do something, but you don't put money out to facilitate enslavement of man. Do you get me? Because you want to catch, say, a fowl, you use corn. Once you grab it, what do you do with it? You finish it. And it's, late Sir John Osuefri is credited with having said, fear delegates. Why should we fear delegates? If, say, the delegates really know that they come in to exercise their rights of choice, to pursue a vision that should be, say, honorable, truly honorable, and beneficial to society generally. But where, say, the whole thing comes up for sale.
The delegates also say that the reason why they will take money from you is that they know that when you get in there, well, they describe it as the...
So there's the cynical attitude I talked about. People are losing the trust, the confidence that in the system, because so far the whole thing has gotten so prevalent that you want to go anywhere now, you must bring the money. The whole thing is being put up for sale. So we're losing this. This is why I say the entire society should sit back and think out. Because if we want good governance, then it should be like principles and also centering the well-being of mankind as the rationale for the social contracts. Without that, then we may see that